It's week 14, which means it's bye week, bye Mageddon. It's also the start of the playoffs in a lot of leagues. Third round of the playoffs in the Scott Fish Bowl. I've got Jake Ciely from the All In podcast, from the Athletic, and various other points of entry there. He's going to join us, help us navigate this tricky week. All coming up next on the RotoWire Fantasy Football Podcast. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the RotoWire Fantasy Football Podcast, brought to you by the good folks from Circa. We love Circa. DraftKings Pick 6 and LIV Golf joining us as a sponsor this week. I'm here with Jake Ciely from the Athletic, the All In Fantasy Football Podcast. Jake, welcome. How's it going, my friend?
It's going terrific. Yeah, it's been a while since we've talked. I always love talking fantasy with you in all sports, including baseball, which I don't do a ton of anymore, but I still love talking about it with you.
Oh, that's the thing I've noticed in the industry is like it's getting harder and harder to do everything. You know, a lot more people are specializing in just one sport or the other, and I'm like supremely jealous at times. At the same time, I love them both, so it's hard not to. I even play in a hoops in a hockey league, soccer. I still love soccer. You know, it's everything I'm into, but I see this happening a lot.
I did one basketball league, and I actually finished in first place. It was with Michael Fabiani invited me to a basketball league, and I was like, I don't know half these dudes. So I was legitimately reading stuff like on RotoWire and other industry people and being like, I don't know half of them. Just tell me who to pick up, and it worked. Somehow it worked.
Sometimes I think that helps you. If you have a good resource, someone you can just trust. You don't have your preconceived biases, this guy owes me, this guy never. No, just says take this guy, I'll take this guy.
I think that actually works out. Maybe we need to do that. Just take our eyes away from football for like the off season and come back and be like, we have no preconceived notions. I don't have this secret love for Jalen McMillan, hoping that it'll finally happen, and it's not happening anymore.
Because you want to find that gem. You want it to be your guy. That happens all the time with me. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Try to make it happen. Yeah, I'm still trying to make Austin Kearns happen. I don't think it's going to happen, but
I think you might have to give that one up.
Yeah, I might have to give that one up there. Tell everybody. I know you're in a ton of places. You got the All In podcast, obviously. When does that drop?
So on fantasy, it's Tuesday, Wednesdays are waivers ranks, just like the columns are Tuesdays and Wednesdays.
Yep.
And then I do a brief, here's the latest news from every single game that you might have missed on Friday. It's like a 10-minute podcast. And then I do the same thing on Sunday night, a 10-minute podcast of all the day games of here's the important takeaways. I try to do kind of quick fire ones to mix in there.
All right. And wherever you get your podcast, you can check that out.
Yes.
I hear you on the FTN Fantasy Show. No longer with Chris Meany. He got a new gig. Happy for him.
Working for the NHL. He can actually say he works for the NHL now.
Yeah, exactly. But still a lot of good folks over there. But check that out over on Sirius. I see you over on Mayo Media Network. Pat, I have him on here occasionally as well. So you're everywhere. I mean, it's our industry. We're everywhere. I love it, but it's good stuff. This week, kind of tough. 6 teams on bye, some significant teams on bye, especially the Ravens and the Houston Texans. I've noticed just going through early runs of waivers, I'm like, oh my gosh, I got a lot to deal with here. Got to replace that Broncos defense everywhere. In addition, plus we got a bidding sweepstakes. We have a clear number 1 free agent this week. It's an interesting week.
It's extremely interesting. So much so in my home league, I actually sold off Amari Cooper for Fab to make sure I had enough to get Guerendo and beat everybody else. That's where we went right now. And as I'm watching the flex leagues and looking at the bids, and obviously Guerendo in the few spots he was available, but to see how desperate it is. And granted, as you know, the flex leagues has a second flex, so waivers are super thin. But seeing Sincere McCormick getting $15 bids, it's man, we're in a desperate spot this week.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think you're looking at my league when you looked at that there.
Was that?
I saw $18 Sincere McMorgan.
18.
Yeah. And then everybody else is 0.
I love that my home league also kept me honest. I had 60 and I put the full 60 on Guerendo, and the next closest was 55, and they still put 55. There was a 40 in there. There's just in case Jake forgets, so just to make sure.
He tries to be squirrely, tries to save some money, thinking that I might not use my hammer. Yeah. But it's such a hammer week though too. I mean, it's week 14 for crying out loud. If you don't use it now, like the NFFC, you have to use it. This is the last week.
Yeah.
So you're going to see a lot of hammer usages here and there.
And on top of it too, like even so is like most of the ones that would be like, oh my gosh, you would have to blow your entire budget for to bring up the names, like are already on rosters. Braylon Allen, Trey Benson, Blake Corum, like most of those have already been now rostered because everybody's looking at, I don't want this to happen to me. So you're right. It is like I was 100% fab on Guerendo for everybody out there everywhere. And I think that he might be the last one we see going forward.
Yeah, I think so too. We'll get to tight ends, but I know I'm in a double tight end league. But I lost Goddard. And there's other tight ends on the side. It's gross. Really gross. Let's talk quarterbacks though first. I did an AMA yesterday. Starting out with Jameis, 497 against Denver. I mean, it was the full Jameis experience. How comfortable are you starting him this week on the road against?
Yeah, Jameis is a tough. Like I'll put it this way: like I'm starting him. If you look at my rankings, because I have him at 12. That means he's a QB1 for me. I have him in front of one spot in front of Caleb Williams, 2 in front of Brock Purdy. Tough matchup. Still don't know if he's 100%. Maybe we get some clarity before the weekend, and I would move Purdy up even against the Bears. But I know people want to stream Levis and the rest. But I mean, it's part because it's a 16 bye. But it's we know what we're getting with Jameis. Like it's the same thing with Anthony Richardson that I told people. It's like you have to look at your team and evaluate and say to yourself, like, can I live with it? You know, the downside of Jameis, we just saw it a few weeks ago, is he's going to get you like 3 or 4 points. Like all turnovers, just has a bad day, doesn't get things going. That's the risk. If you don't want to risk that, if you can't handle that, there are safer options like Brock Purdy, even if he isn't 100%. So I'm going with him though, because I'm looking at week 14. I need to probably get into the playoffs. I need to possibly lock in a seed. Points might come into play. So I have no problem going with it. He's a spot behind Herbert, who I think might have to pass more against the Chiefs. But again, it comes down to there are safer options. But at this point, like of all the positions, tight end's probably the most reckless I'll be because it's tight end. Yep. It's quarterback. I'll be reckless. I'll shoot. I want somebody to shoot for top 10 versus being like, cool, I got Derek Carr, QB 17 this week. Like, what does that really do for you?
Exactly. I've got Jameis at 9 this week. So
so you're even more in.
Yeah. Hey, just, you ever saw the movie version of Parenthood? I'm really dating myself here, but I love the roller coaster. Yeah, just embrace it with Jameis. Get the full Jameis experience here. I just hope that he's not like, he had that press conference, Lord, deliver me from the pick sixes or something like that. I really hope he's not trying to change himself. I hope he's really just steering to being you, dude.
This is the Jameis we love in fantasy. Like we don't love that part where he became slightly more conservative with the Saints, and it was kind of all of a sudden it was like maybe 2 touchdowns and maybe 250 yards. Like do not bring that Jameis back. We want that graphic, by the way, where he's out there. Was eating the W on that graphic with the side by side in that matchup for the game. That was terrific. This is the Jameis we love.
Exactly. I remember the 30 for 30 season. I loved it. It was great. And the lesson here is Dennis Allen ruins everything. I think we got to embrace that. But yeah, getting a lot of Jameis questions, and more often than not, the answer is Jameis. Kyler Murray. I know some people are a little frustrated with him. The experience is kind of all over the map with him. He faces Seattle, a team that shut him down 2 weeks ago. What are your thoughts on Kyler Murray this week?
So I have him narrowly inside my top 10. I have him at 9. I don't feel good about it. I actually think that he's more of a risk than Jameis is at this point. It's just the rushing upside is that little extra piece that we love. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's Seattle. Their defense has been playing better. They're still mostly vulnerable passing wise. But the real concern here is that you never get huge passing numbers outside of I think it was the Dolphins game where Kyler threw for 300. but you never get the enormous ones week in and week out. It's really the rushing upside that helps boost him into that top 10. But I talked about that too back with Meany when he was still doing the podcast, and this was even before the Seattle game. Is up until that point, it had almost been alternating weeks. Like, kind of made the San Francisco joke from back in the day where being the Giants, the San Francisco Giants, they won every other year. You had to go with was it the even years or was it the odd years? I forget. I think it was even. But it was kind of that. He was back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, and then he was quiet, that being Kyler Murray, now quiet against Minnesota too. So I think against Seattle, I'm not putting too much into the first matchup of being like, oh, well, they're just going to repeat and he's not going to do anything. Obviously, he's a QB1 for me, but I think that has more to do with being a 16 bye. If we had all 32 teams, like last week, Kyler Murray wasn't a QB1 for me just because I feel like it's – let me put it this way, Jeff. Our rank is wrong. It's either going to be too low or too high. Like, there's no in-between with Kyler at this point.
Right. I got him at 8. I don't love it. But it's right at that demarcation point where I'm not comfortable with really anyone. And I felt like there was like this tier where we don't have quite enough of QB1s and wide receiver 3s and running back 2s. It's just, there's like just short of that this week. And he's kind of in that gray area. Brock Purdy, it's not just the snow game. It's his shoulder. It's just the general malaise, and the Niners don't know if Trent Williams is going to play. I've got him buried this week. I've got him at 20 against the Bears.
And I have no problem with that. I'm, as of today, so like something, and I'm sure you've seen, like when I write up game previews a lot of times on The Athletic, which each one I give stats, but I also give like ifs, buts, like, hey, if this person plays and this person doesn't, this is where they would rank. And as of right now, the Brock Purdy is, assuming we get some positive news, and I have him at 14, which is still low for being Brock Purdy matchup or not.
Sure.
This is a lot of, this is probably Brock Purdy best case scenario. If there's no Trent Williams, he's going to fall. If you add in or like the arm issues bother him all week, no practice until Friday, he's going to fall. So those are both, I would honestly, I'm looking behind him. Russ, Geno, Stafford, even against Buffalo would probably you bring up a line of demarcation, is probably like around where it would be like 18, 19, 20 for me. So I'd be more with you if we get the worst of the worst news. It's not, that. It was Trent Williams. I tweeted that out last week, too, for when we had the question before that game, is the rushing side of it, too, is a full yard, not like a half a yard, not 0.2, a full yard less before contact without Trent Williams on the field the past 2 years, no matter who the running back has been. That's an insane number for one offensive lineman to lose an entire yard for your offense, which obviously also affects Brock Purdy. So I have him at 14, best case scenario. I will be 100% with you if it's bad news the rest of the week.
Yep, and I'm just assuming the worst. I feel like they're in operation shutdown mode. They're this close to being that way. And they're not quite there yet. Say if they somehow lose to the Bears, though, they're going to get the dead cat coaching bounce here this week. I don't know. It's funny. Like, if you would have told me at the start of the season that the Bears would fire their coach heading into this game against the Niners, the line, I would have told you the line's at least 10, maybe higher. It's not. It's like 4. It's 3.5, I think. It's crazy.
I'm 100% with you. I thought I was at 14. I was like huge number. But yeah, if you're in a super flex or if you're a single quarterback and don't have a backup plan, I'm sure you do at this point for Brock Purdy. But I was saying super flex. I have him in super flex home league. I'm not counting on Brock Purdy for weeks 16 and 17 because I'm with you. I wouldn't be shocked if they lose another 1 or 2 and they're out of the playoffs that they just shut them down, given everything that's happened this year.
Yeah, he's got the shoulder. They're not going to make the playoffs. They have to make a decision whether to sign him. Don't want to expose him to getting hit again. I would be very wary of that. Last quarterback I want to bring up, Tua Tagovailoa. Easy for me to say. It's early here. Okay. He's actually played pretty well the last couple of weeks, but he gets the Jets this week. And for all the Jets' problems, they still defend the pass pretty well.
They do, but I'm pretty aggressive on him even in this matchup. I think that the Jets started to feel to me this year watching them more, and this is without the Sauce Gardner news as of right now. Like whether or not he plays, like I feel he's been more vulnerable, and kind of watching this team feels like last year's Titans to me in the fact of like, remember it's like, oh, the Titans run defense is so good. And it's like, is it really? Or is it just everybody passes on them so nobody runs that much and they're just an okay run defense? I've kind of, as I've felt watching the Jets this year, and I'm not saying they're only an okay pass defense. I just don't think they're a shutdown pass defense. I think they're good. They are above average. probably still pushing top 10, but I still think they're vulnerable enough. And the way the Dolphins have played football this year is not the Dolphins of last year, which is why Jonnu Smith is such a thing. And I think they match up well enough where Waddle's not even needed, as we've seen, as much anymore. Right. It's basically Hill, the backfield with HM. And I think that just the dump-offs alone with Tua in this game, I actually have Tua in front of Kyler Murray. I have him number 7 this week. I think he's going to be fine against the Jets at home. If it was bad weather, completely. Although he threw that out in the second half, but I mean bad weather as in like precipitation and cold and stuff like that. If it was a bad weather game in New York, I'd be like, maybe, but it's in Miami. So unless it's torrential downpour, I trust Tua this week.
Yeah, okay. Good. I got it like 14, 15 or so. I could totally.
Oh, finally, we're on different ends on one.
Yeah. All right. There you go. But it's more just opponent driven. But you're right. The sauce thing would change things quite a bit. A couple of QB questions in the chat, then we'll move on. Ismail, call me Ismail, asks Caleb or Herbert this week.
Ooh, that's a good one. I actually still have Herbert just in front of Caleb Williams. I love what we were seeing from Caleb Williams, but Herbert against the Chiefs, they're going to have to pass. You do not run on the Chiefs, and I think Herbert's going to have to pass this one. That being said, if you're afraid of them not having McConkey and not wanting to wait all that time, the safer route is Caleb Williams, because I would not like Justin Herbert without Ladd McConkey in that game. And you would have to wait for that one.
Quentin Johnston needs to go watch Little Giants. And imagine every football is a roll of toilet paper. Then he'll be fine.
I think he's kind of got a little bit of the knoblock in him now, where it's happening. It hit him in the face, and now he's in his own head.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the Monday night game had to be scarring because he had been kind of turning this corner, and then he has the critical drop again. It was like the Green Bay game last year, where it's just you got to make that play. I mean, you did the hard work of getting open. You just catch the darn ball. It's a huge play.
It is every time.
Every time. One other quarterback question. Nick asks, going in the playoffs for QB2, keep CJ Stroud or pick up Herbert, Russ, Jameis, or Caleb?
Ooh, so Winston, especially with the Bengals in that schedule, is very appealing. However, I don't know if you've seen, but Zach Jackson from The Athletic actually is concerned that Winston doesn't finish the season just because he's not the plan next year, and they might just throw DTR out there to be like, oh, do we need a different backup next year? So he's just throwing that. He just believes it might happen. So you might not even get that Jameis Winston game. Caleb Williams, I think, would be the one with me with Herbert, and I would drop Stroud. I actually even recommended dropping Stroud since he's on his bye, because there's Stroud and Tank Dell at this point. I don't see how they even would you even trust them? You would have to, and this is the thing, you would have to wait to see a good game out of the bye, and then you would have to play them the next week, so you're still waiting an extra week anyway. I'm dropping both because without those names on the back of their jerseys, we wouldn't have interest in either one of them this year.
Yeah, I think you're 100% right about that there. Just watching that game against Jacksonville last week was just sickening. Just how bad the offensive line is, how many penalties this team commits. They're just off right now. Everything is just not clicking. I don't understand what happened to CJ Stroud. And I don't, because last year that line was supposed to be terrible. They had so many injuries on that offensive line. Somehow it's playing worse this year than it was last year.
I think it's missing a real number 2. It worked last year with Tank Dell, but once you figure out Tank Dell, it's kind of other teams when you ask, when we saw Shakir try to be the one for the Bills or Michael Wilson for the one for when his time. Some wide receivers are, what a shock, equipped to be ones. We can't have 32 ones in the NFL. I mean, heck, even if every team had a one, you can't have even more ones than that. That's okay that some wide receivers can't handle that, and I think you're seeing that from Tank Dell, but you're also seeing the fact that I'm not calling him a one-trick pony. Let me make that clear. But Tank Dell had his limitations, and I think people got a little too excited about him last year. And what is the NFL? As we've seen just this year, you see teams adapt to other teams so quickly. And the book got out on how to stop the Texans and how to limit Tank Dell. And the problem with Stroud, as you know, he's a pocket passer, and you pressure him in the pocket, and you saw last year, it wasn't that big of an issue. Like you said, the offensive line was a concern, but there was quick decisions made last year, and when there wasn't, he did actually have some time and got it downfield to Tank Dell. Well, now they're saying, well, let's keep somebody deep. Tank Dell can't do his thing. We get to Stroud within a second or two, and it's full panic mode. Honestly, you throw the name off the jersey, he looks like Caleb Williams earlier this year.
Yeah. Well, maybe they need to go hire the Bears interim head coach to be their offensive coordinator. Bobby Slowick was this huge big name going into the coach cycle last year. Didn't get hired, goes back to the Texans, and all of a sudden the offense tanks. It's weird. But hey, funny how that's the NFL in a nutshell. Look, ask the Bengals.
You have to adapt.
Yeah.
Look at McDaniel. That the Dolphins are adapting. You have to adapt, and if you don't, you're going to get destroyed.
Yeah, exactly. All right, we are brought to you by DraftKings Pick 6. We are excited to hear that. Nick Whalen's going to tell you something about it right now.
We're proud to be brought to you by DraftKings Pick 6. So many NFL offerings each week over at Pick 6. Been enjoying playing on the Pick 6 platform each and every week of the NFL season. Think a certain quarterback will throw for more than 300 yards. How about your favorite receiver scoring a touchdown? Check out Pick 6, the newest way to play fantasy football and win cash right now with DraftKings. Here's how it works. Just pick 2 to 6 players of the same sport and choose if they'll have more or less of a given stat. Yards, catches, touchdowns, etc. Lock in those picks and compete against opponents for a shot at huge cash prizes. Download the new DraftKings Pick 6 app now and use our code ROTOPICK. That's ROTOPICK. Again, ROTOPICK, ROTOPICK. If you're a new Pick 6 customer, play $5, get $50 in Pick 6 credits guaranteed. Just use that code, RotoPick. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-78-89-7777 or visit ccpg.org in Connecticut. Must be 18 plus. Age and eligibility restrictions vary by jurisdiction. Pick 6 not available everywhere, including New York and Ontario. Void where prohibited. See terms at pick6.draftkings.com/promos.
Big thanks to Nick Whalen for saving me one read every podcast there. And thanks to DraftKings Pick 6, of course. We love our sponsors. Here with Jake Ciely. You can follow him on Twitter at AllInKid. And I never knew how much. I've never played poker with you. Are you a big poker player or?
That's actually where the name came from. Really big poker. So when I got the name, I wasn't any good. I actually started out of college, and so now I was playing with a bunch of friends. I worked at a radio station with some guys, and they're like, "Hey, you want to play?" And I was like, "Yeah, I've always wanted." And it was no hold'em. It was a tournament. And what do you do when you're new? You go all in a lot when you shouldn't. Yeah. And it was a huge tournament, 3 different tables. And they're big on nicknames. And there's this guy, his nickname was Don Ho-Hos because he was a big guy and he loved Ho-Hos. So Don Ho-Hos. Yeah, and we're sitting there and it's like after like the 7th or 8th time. And he just goes, "Damn, all in, kid." And then boom, that was my nickname from there on out. And now for like probably 15 so years of just playing I like have tournaments at my house. I have chips in the closet and all that type of stuff. Like, nice. I mean, legit tips. Like that stuff you get at like Walmart, like the nice chips off the sites and stuff like that. Huge. I love. I was trying to get into the draw for the World Poker. They were giving away the ones online where you get the draw for the entry tournament to get into the World Poker Tournament. So yeah, I would love to get in one of those one day. It's just I'm not putting the $1,000 up. That's just on the tournament alone though.
Best groomsman's gift I ever got. I was in in the wedding party for a buddy of mine, and he gave me a customized set of poker chips. It's pretty awesome.
That is awesome.
Those good clay chips and all that. Yeah,
I'll have to tell you one time in another story. I actually almost got kicked out of a poker room in Atlantic City. But,
oh, nice. Yeah.
That's a story for another day.
By the way, everybody. Yeah, I would love to hear that. Running backs, Isaac Guerendo. We talked about it a little bit there. Obviously, early bidding wars. Everybody is spending their max well. Although I did someone tweet at me say that he had 10th out of 12th on waiver priority and got him. I'm like, I actually don't like being in leagues like that where it's just like it's the kiddie pool league where not everybody's paying attention. But all the fab leagues I'm in, it's always been whoever's had the hammer has used it. So I've been impressed seeing that so far.
Yeah, I've been happy to see it so far, and it was you got to drop it, you got to get it. And when it comes to ranking him this week, I'm partly aggressive. This is, it's funny. It goes back to that whole conversation we had with the basketballs, like maybe not having that preconceived notion of what you think about players and just having more clarity. But I went in on Isaac Guerendo as being somebody who also does the rookie column over at The Athletic for the NFL draft, talking for fantasy. And Isaac Guerendo was somebody that I thought fit perfectly. When drafted, I was like, oh my God, I love this fit. Isaac Guerendo fits a Shanahan run scheme. Like, it's just a perfect fit for me. So I stashed him in a lot of leagues to start the year. I had him in a super, super, super deep sleeper article. I was like, hey, these are guys that are just free. Maybe you stash them. And so I wanted to say that to say I'm coming from the side of Guerendo is a guy for me. Like you said before, like sometimes you got to throw out your guys. So I aggressively ranked them, in my opinion. I have him at 13. I have him behind David Montgomery and then in front of a bunch of people that I consider concerns to a degree. Kenneth Walker, he's sharing more with Zach Charbonnet and it just hasn't been that effective. Tony Pollard, if you told me they win that game, I would put Tony Pollard in front of him, but I don't trust the Titans any given week not to fall behind the Jaguars, and then you have Tajay Spears, and then James Conner, Aaron Jones, Rico Dowdle, and down from there. If you wanted to argue for any of those, I'm not going to argue hard. It's just I know the workload for Guerendo, at least in one game. Like maybe things change going forward. Maybe he falls on his face and Patrick Taylor or somebody else, the one that they picked up, Abonaconda.
Yeah.
I had to think for a second to make sure I got his name pronounced correctly. Maybe they mix in more, but for at least this week, it's the 49ers and it should be 80-90% of the workload.
Yeah, I'm with you. I have them at 16, so not that far off. Yeah. My only concern is, what is this Niners run game now, especially if Williams doesn't play or is compromised? Because this line isn't the same as it was even at the beginning of the year, let alone previous years. But Guerendo is actually going to catch passes, too. One thing I'm encouraged by, he's had one game where he's had 40 plus, more than 20 snaps, and he got 5 targets in that game. That's a big targets, and he only has 6 on the year, but he's only had one game with more than 20 snaps. So he's going to be involved in the passing game too.
I love that part of it. And then, of course, until we see what Deebo Samuel get 8 carries in the backfield and ruin this for something. Yeah. Him in his flak jacket, he has to be wearing something underneath that. He looks so thick this year to me.
Yeah. He's definitely not the same player. They got really tough offseason coming up here. Really interesting to see what they're going to be doing. But Debo's a big part of that. He could be gone, but Ayuk's going to be coming back from a major knee injury. I mean, and they've got a real problem coming up.
Yeah, and like you said, do they sign Brock Purdy? They got a lot of decisions to make this offseason.
Absolutely. Isiah Pacheco came back, was the more effective of the 2 backs, but didn't get a ton of snaps against the Raiders. Do you expect him to kind of get closer to a starter role this week where he's getting 2/3 of the carries, 60% of the carries, something like that?
I do. For last week, I had him. I didn't have him as high as I do this week, but I had him in front of Kareem Hunt, mostly because Kareem Hunt had been used volume. We knew that he wasn't that effective as the volume that was helping. But also, as long as we've both been doing this, this is a lot of times when the incumbent comes back and the other person's performing well, which Hunt was performing well, granted on volume, but the incumbent comes back and it's like, oh, they could wait another week, but they still bring him back. Usually that tells us he's ready. He's going to step back into his lead role. Yeah. That obviously didn't mean 90% work for Pacheco, but he was back into the lead. I think it grows. I'm with you. I think it could be in more of the 67% range. That being said, Chargers aren't the best matchup. I have them at 21. I would still go Najee Harris, who I hate to trust, but I feel like Najee Harris is always wrong too. You rank him at just 20 and he's going to finish 10 or 30. There is no in between. And right behind Dowdle against the Bengals, but he's right there in that group. I would play him, to give you an idea, I have him in front of DeAndre Swift. Even with hers workload, I just don't trust him in that offense. Since the change has been made, they've kind of just abandoned the effectiveness of the run, which has just killed Swift, and he doesn't make we would love him to make up more in the passing game, but he's just not even getting those targets. The biggest thing is Caleb Williams, since the coaching change, is almost 15% more per 15 percentage points, to be clear. 15 percentage points more throwing to his wide receivers, and the drop-off hasn't come from the tight end. It's all come from throwing to the backfield.
Yep, and Caleb's pulling it down and running a lot more, too.
Yeah,
and that's there's not the dump off the Swift. It's that I'll just run it instead, and because we always knew that Caleb could run. He didn't necessarily want to run, and he is doing a lot more of that lately. So I agree with you on that. I have Pacheco and Harris back to back, of course, naturally. So
the same.
Yeah, right in that range there. You mentioned this earlier. Kenneth Walker has really struggled lately. The Seattle offensive line is quietly one of the worst offensive lines in football. Maybe not even quietly. They were loudly one of the worst offensive lines against the Jets last week. that goal line sequence was utterly pathetic. But Walker is not only struggling with effectiveness, but he's also losing snaps to Charbonnet. I am a little bit concerned if I have Walker.
I am too. The only thing that's continued to help him, and even when he was having his best games, was the passing game. I mean, it was going back to the targets. I mean, it was 6, 7, 8 some games. I still have him there at 14 because of that. And I just, even as bad as it's been, he's still getting the double-digit mid-teen touches, even losing some to Charbonnet. So that's why, like I said, I have him one spot in front of Tony Pollard. If you wanted to play Pollard and you're like, I know the Titans are going to win this game, I wouldn't even argue much. It's just, honestly, Kenneth Walker and James Conner fall into the same bucket. It's just, we expect them both to be better given who they are. And on top of that, the Cardinals just gave Conner a 2-year extension. But both of them, even with the help of the passing game, have been more of low-end RB2s. I think this is another one. If we weren't having a 16 bye this week, I think Walker and Conner would be closer to like 2021 for me.
Yeah, agreed. So it is this bye week, which means we got to make some like ugly starts in some places here. And running back is one of those. Of these backs, which one are you most comfortable using as backup? Charbonnet, Ray Davis, Jonathan Brooks, or Cam Akers, or Blake Corum? Actually, we'll throw him in that mix too.
I think I'm going to Charbonnet just because the touches that have been increasing, including, here's the thing, the goal line. They're giving him, they're sharing that work with him. So if you're going to get that opportunity and touchdown share, hopefully this isn't a stinker like it was 2 weeks ago, the shootout that everybody thought we were going to get and it wasn't even close. He would be the one. Ray Davis would be close behind that just because of the matchup, and it just might be one of those ones where things go sideways for the Rams because everything about the Bills sets up perfectly to stop the Rams, and if it does, then you get some Ray Davis sprinkled in, and maybe he can break a long one too. But I just, the only thing about Brooks is I'm intrigued, but I hate the matchup against the Eagles this week because I'm intrigued because Hubbard fell flat in his face last week, and Brooks looked good in that game, including that one reception that he really looked explosive on. I'm not that worried about Hubbard yet, but it's at least in the back of my mind of like, we were so happy. We were like, man, it hasn't stopped. And he gets a contract and it's not going to stop. And then all of a sudden it's like worst time possible. It's like, maybe we have a Hubbard concern.
The lingering, just keep showing that lingering shot of him hanging his head on the sideline. They're sitting on the bench after the game too. Let's just pound that point home to us. I was like, oh, gosh, so bad. I felt so awful for him. Just like I felt horrible for Tyrone Tracy in that game against Carolina there, too. Played his butt off, has a critical mistake, and you just see him just like feeling the entire weight of that loss on your shoulders.
Yeah, it's like you want to just give him a hug. Like Austin Powers, old one, Dr. Evil. Come here, just bring it in.
I love that. Good reference there. We're going to hit up wide receivers, but first, got a note from our good friends over at Circa. We love Circa. Every year we go there. The end of the season is getting closer. Catch the big game poolside at Stadium Swim at Circa Resort and Casino in Las Vegas. 6 temperature-controlled pools, a massive 143-foot screen, and booming game sound. Plus, view the pyrotechnics and visual effects throughout the game. Grab the best seat in the sun with day beds, poolside boxes, cabanas, and more. Stadium Swim's big game viewing party is February 9th, only at Circa Resort and Casino. Space is going fast. Reserve your spot today at circalasvegas.com. I can't recommend Circa highly enough. They have been awesome to us. Every July, we go there for the RotoWire conference. We go there for Radio Row for their Survivor contest to help do that. And they love fantasy players. It's really kind of cool to see. I know, Jake, you've been in this business for a really long time too. Just fighting for that recognition, and now seeing fantasy become mainstream, seeing it like an entire casino, like say, hey, come have your draft at our place, and really catering to you. It's really nice to see.
It is. We actually, at the Athletic, we almost ended up going to one in the Bahamas. And I was like, ooh, this is like almost. It didn't happen. Maybe next year. But yeah, the Circa's on the list. The Circa's over with FTN too. That's definitely a really good one of all of them.
Yep, absolutely. So anyways, happy to sponsor them there. It's always nice to have a sponsor you actually really truly believe in too. I love that. Yeah. Let's hit up wide receivers. Malik Nabers, the squeaky wheel did get the grease, but how much is that grease worth when it's Drew Lock or Tommy DeVito throwing the ball to him?
It's enough to be in the conversation of, I think, like a Jacoby Myers, which I have both of them in the teens, is that I think that's kind of Malik Nabers at this point, is that just the volume you hope is what wins the day. And it kind of has been, despite the fact, like, it all came in the second half. It was still there. And, he even squeaky wheeled after the game onto it, which probably didn't make the team very happy, but he hasn't stopped talking about the fact of like, why does it take to be 30-0 before I get the ball? We've seen this with wide receivers before. You kind of like it to a degree, but you kind of like, it's that delicate balance. Like you want your wide receiver to be like, give me the ball. I'm out there to make plays for you. I have the talent. But at the same time, there's a concern that even in this matchup with the Saints, which I give their defense credit. It's been playing better even with the losses and including the fact of trading away Lattimore. But he wasn't playing, obviously. But the fact that it's been playing better of late, still, the volume is going to keep him in the teens for me this week. I have him alongside Jackson Smith and Jigba, Jacoby Myers, Malik Nabers. He's behind Ladd McConkey to give you an idea, but he's still in that group for me.
Yeah, McConkey I have a little lower only because of the knee, and they've already said his practice availability is going to be and they don't play, and they played Sunday night too, so it's kind of like same thing with CeeDee Lamb for that matter, playing the Monday night game against the Bengals. I mean, I know the Cowboys don't think they're out of it, but they're out of it. Granted, it's a Monday night game, it's the Simpsons game. I love that a gimmick like that's the only reason this game didn't get flexed.
It didn't get flexed out. I brought that up on the waiver podcast. That's the only reason we have this game. I think the CeeDee Lamb is a good comparison. I would have him in the same group. I pushed CeeDee Lamb down to 20 because just the injury is not him being 100%.
I don't know what to make out of that yet. I probably won't know until Friday because the first practice of the week usually is you almost certainly aren't going to see him out there or not very meaningful action. If he gets a full practice on Thursday, well, okay, then it's full steam ahead with him. But again, it's also full steam ahead with Cooper Rush. Then again, it's full steam against the Bengals. So, tough call there. I'm a self-hating Bengals fan, so you know that. Just start anybody against the Bengals.
Hey, on the good side, did you see my tweet yesterday that since this Zach Moss second injury, Chase Brown's been top 5. So if you take Jamar Chase 1 on the season, T. Higgins for all his games played is a top 5 in points per game, and Joe Burrow's number 2 in points per game. All 4 of them are inside the top 5 in points per game this year.
That doesn't make me feel better because we're 4-8, and
I tried.
It's strong Andrew Luck, Dan Marino vibes with Burrow. It's just Dan Marino made the Super Bowl very early in his career, I think year 2. Didn't win. They got smashed by the Niners. Never made it back to the Super Bowl. And I can't escape that feeling that this is exactly the same thing here. It's just not going to happen. And I'm feeling very super depressed about that. But life as a fan of why do I always choose teams like this and not front running teams? I don't know. I mean,
you could do like me. A couple of years, I told you, it's the second year of Daniel Jones. I tell everybody all the time. I was like, the first year when they drafted Daniel Jones, I'm like, I'm done with the Giants. I can't do this anymore. And the second year, I was like, but I'll give him 1 year in case I was wrong about Daniel Jones, and I wasn't. And back then, this is before C.J. Stroud bought a Texans hat. Look, I've ruined the Texans. I'm with you. I pick a new team and then I ruin them too.
Yeah. Why can't I just be oh, I'm a Niners fan here, but I'm a Yankees fan there. No, don't do that, though.
I have a buddy like that. I have a buddy. Yeah. Cowboys, Spurs, and Yankees. Explain that one.
Yeah, national teams, I guess. But Spurs are funny, though. I mean, they're both Texas. Ish. Yeah. Yeah, I have
front running back in 2000s.
I have a buddy that's a North Carolina basketball fan, a Niners football fan, and it's just really. You can't
Bulls fan, or then they stopped being a Bulls fan and now they're like a Heat fan or something.
Yeah, exactly. There. I mean, life would be a lot easier. You don't have pain. You don't have I'm a Northwestern guy losing on the buzzer to freaking Iowa last night, but that was a tough one too. Yeah, don't become a fan. Just I become more of a. And then the thing is, I just root for my fantasy teams. I get that a lot too, but it would be nice sometimes. All right. You want to drive a fantasy analyst crazy? Just mention Nick Westbrook-Ikhine and his touchdown. It's amazing seeing this here, and he's got a great matchup against the Jaguars this week. Yeah, and I can't get him higher than 37, 35. I know he's probably going to score and have 3 catches and a touchdown.
So the funny thing here is that I had him in the upper 30s last week, and I was I felt like that was being aggressive, but it came down to, you're right. It's it drives us mad because we know this doesn't, football fans, no, it doesn't make sense. This does not work. You don't catch 40% of your receptions for touchdowns. Look at the target. You don't catch 21% of your targets for touchdowns. It's just not how it works. However, I will throw another name in here who also has 40% of his catches for touchdowns and 20% of his targets for touchdowns, MVS. So I'm saying it to say this, people are buying into MVS but it's like you don't want to do it with Westbrook-Ikhine, and honestly, he has double the targets, so that's why the numbers are different on a total. But I'm buying in. I actually have Westbrook-Ikhine as a low-end wide receiver too. I would play him over Jayden Reed. That's Jayden Reed assuming Dobbs plays.
If there's no guys there,
next thing on the list. Okay, well we'll bring him into the conversation because I would move Reed up if there is no Dobbs. I have Dobbs in my ranks just as one of those. I give you the scenario so you know what happens either way. Reed would move way up. We've seen the pecking order for the Packers. I'll just tie this whole conversation in since this was next up. We've seen the pecking order. When Dobbs is out there, it's still Dobbs and Reed, and then Watson's a boomer bust wide receiver 3 or 4, which I have no problem still playing. When there is no Dobbs, it's Watson, and Watson and Reed are both wide receiver 2s or better. So I would move both of them up. But the Westbrook-Ikhine, it's the Jaguars if we're going to attack that matchup. And if we took, this is going to be our theme for today, preconceived notions or all this coming in fresh, right. Is that if we didn't know Westbrook-Ikhine, if we didn't know who he was up until this point, we'd be like, man, he should have been picked up 3 weeks ago. He shouldn't be on your waiver wire. I still am hesitant because we know it can't work. But even if he doesn't score a touchdown, what's stopping him from going 4 of 80 against the Jaguars? Because it's a funneled passing game for Will Levis. It's Calvin Ridley, Westbrook-Ikhine, the end. Lukaku's not a thing. The backfield, really not much of a thing for Levis. It's those two. So it's a way, way lesser version, but it's a way, way lesser version of the Rams. So why aren't we buying in?
Yeah. Well, part of it is Levis is a poor man's Jameis.
I call him, he's Taylor Heineke is who he is.
Yeah, with just more disaster written in though too. With Levis. I mean, it comical disaster too. It's almost makes it more compelling to watch. Like, what's Will Levis going to do today? Is he going to throw?
Oh, that's what's going to happen. Yeah. You've done this long enough, Jeff. The people are going to stream Will Levis, put in Westbrook-Ikhine, and they're going to score 3 points, and everybody's going to be like, "What the hell?"
Yep, they're going to Kyle Pitts us. For sure. Falcons are next on my list. Let's hit that right now. Are the Falcons fixable? Kirk Cousins looks so washed right now. He had a stretch where he looked really good at one point in time. He's back to week 1 Kirk Cousins right now. He can't move. He's making bad decisions. It's so tough to watch.
And the weird thing is, too, is you brought up week 1, and I joked, and it was kind of like a tongue-in-cheek joke, but it almost looks like he's trying to throw a 10-pound football. He's really struggling to get it out, and I don't know if that's the Achilles and the drop back, because we know it's a different foot and plant foot than Aaron Rodgers, so maybe that's why this is an issue at this point. It was weird, because you said there was that stretch, and I agree with you. He looked fine. He didn't look amazing, but he looked fine, and he was playing well. The worst part about this, too, and I wrote this up in the column, is that this is a terrible matchup stylistically for him too. If you go back, there's a bunch of stats in there if you want to go over and look, but the Vikings defense and the way they play actually is one of the worst for what Kirk Cousins does. And this isn't just this year. This is just Kirk Cousins style. So I have Drake London. You kind of still have to play Drake London, but to go back to the Malik Nabers, he's with Malik Nabers. He's not even top 10. He's not even a wide receiver 1. He's in that conversation where he's Drake London. So you kind of have to play him, but I kind of bury Darnell Mooney, which makes me feel like he's going to go off and just break coverage and get one big catch for a touchdown, of course. But Mooney's down in 36 range up against Jordan Addison and Adam Thielen in a terrible matchup.
Yeah. How low do you have Kyle Pitts? Is he out of the top 20? I mean, it's bye weeks and injuries this week.
Kyle Pitts is at 20. I would play. Here's how far I'll go. I'm playing Schoonmaker with Jake Ferguson in my rankings in front of Kyle Pitts at this point.
Wow. I mean, I've got Juwan Johnson over Pitts.
I do too.
Yeah.
Noah Gray, a second tight end on his team. I'm playing over Kyle Pitts.
Yes, exactly. It's really rough out there. We're going to talk more tight ends in a second. We got to share a note from our good friends at LIV Golf. A new season of LIV Golf Fantasy is coming in 2025. New prizes, new ways to win, and more are coming in the new season. Get ready to play and sign up now at fantasy.livegolf.com. All right. I love that because nice quick read. We are talking tight ends now. I'm here with Jake Ciely with The Athletic. Tyler has patiently been waiting to ask a tight end question, so I thought I'd go ahead and hit that up real quick before we launch into some of those. Cade Otton, Juwan Johnson, Dalton Kincaid if he plays, or Jake Ferguson if he plays. Any one of those strike your fancy as someone that you'd want to start most?
Yeah, I'm giving Cade Otton one more chance. I know everybody wants to just let him go. 2 weeks ago was miserable, 10% target share. Like, I get it. First game back, Mike Evans. It's not so much the Mike Evans problem, though. He still had almost 21% of the target share last week. So it was still there. He still had 2 red zone targets. He had an end zone target, which if he comes down with, as I think a lot of people saw that, he catches a touchdown. We're not even having this conversation. And then we're just talking about the one bad game. So I was encouraged to see that the target share, including red zone opportunities, went back up last week, which is what he had been relying on through those games. So we know the Raiders are a good matchup. I wouldn't overstate them a little bit because they did face Travis Kelce twice, Mike Gesicki with no T. Higgins, and Jonnu Smith in 4 of their last 5 games. So they've kind of hit the hell's bells, or sort of like the murderer's row is probably the better thing I should say instead of hell's bells. The murderer's row of tight ends to a degree.
That's all right.
Yeah, I don't know. It works. But I'm giving him one more chance. The other one in that group it wasn't Kincaid, just because I'm worried still that even if he plays, he's 100%. There was another one in that group would be this
in there as well.
Juwan Johnson, who we brought up earlier. Juwan Johnson would be the other one, but I'm still giving Otton one more chance.
Yeah, I am too. I've got it Otton and Johnson for me. But yeah, obviously the injured guys, you kind of have to kind of wait and see a little bit there. One guy that isn't getting the volume, but had a couple touchdowns last week is Sam LaPorta. Obviously, he has not delivered what we'd hoped for this year. He has been better over the last month, but he was very touchdown dependent last year too. It was something that, like my colleague Alan Soslowski kept on pointing out in draft season. Or was it Jim Coventry? One of my guys at RotoWire was pointing that out, and he had him as like his tight end 6 or 7, which meant he wasn't getting LaPorta in leagues. Kind of in the same boat, but what do you expect with LaPorta going forward?
I expect him to stay as a top 10, but more of mid to back end for me, and that he's just touchdown reliant now. He's kind of in that same conversation of like a Tucker Kraft, and that's who he's been pretty much for a while now. The thing is it's starting to become a little bit clearer of the fact that Jameson Williams, not surprisingly, destroys man coverage and then struggles a little bit more against zone because what does Jameson Williams do really well? It's just blow past people. Still limited-ish route-wise, and you've seen some of those things start to open up more for LaPorta in the second half. So you can kind of, it's not perfect, but you can kind of lean in if you see some teams that are super zone heavy. You can say, all right, I feel a little bit better about LaPorta this week. Conversely, if it's a very man coverage, then you're like, well, this should be a Jameson game. Again, it's not a perfect setup, but it's more telling than not. But I have LaPorta actually at 6 this week. I ranked him one spot in front of George Kittle, not knowing. It's funny that I went with Brock Purdy saying, like, this is where Brock Purdy is because I'm just going to, like, assume everything's okay. But then I went the other way with George Kittle. Right. Like, there's so many things going wrong that I'm hesitant on George Kittle. So I kind of went opposite directions, strangely enough, with those.
I've been stubborn with Kittle. I still have him at 3, just ahead of Ingram and Jonnu. But I get where you're coming from on that though too. I get it. Last week is just like, as far as Kittle goes, I thought it was just a giant write-off. They just couldn't.
Oh yeah. That is.
Jonnu, I mean, he's a top 5 tight end for me. I have him over Kelce. I mean,
I do too.
So like, what world am I living in where Jonnu Smith is a top 5 tight end, but he's displaced Waddle as the number 2 option. Waddle had one big game against New England, but last week, he was back down to 4 targets. Jonnu's getting his all the time.
So I actually am at 3. The only 2 are in front of him are Bowers and McBride. That's where I'm at now. And it goes back to what we talked about earlier. It comes down to teams adjusting, and it's always the back and forth. I mean, it's the same thing with like baseball when you get pitchers and pitches, and then batters adjust and back and forth and back and forth, and it's never going to stop. But at this point, what we had, and it was a few weeks ago when I was talking about the Waddle problem, is that you now have teams that have said, you know what? We know the Dolphins' trick. The trick is you have guys who run 4.40s, and we're just like, you know what? Maybe we'll kind of play this shell and just keep everything in front of us. You're going to have to beat us underneath. Sure, you can do stuff after the catch and still beat some of our guys, but we're going to stop playing close at all. And it took time. We were talking about the first half. You remember this first half of the season. People were like, is McDaniel a one-year wonder? Is he been figured out? Is he going to lose his job? And then McDaniel proved what we knew is like, oh, I'm smart. I'm going to change things. And what the change was is pulling things in. Yep. And now the counteract has been, as you said, it's been making Jonnu the 2. It's no longer Waddle. And Waddle has kind of been left out in the cold to a degree. And Tyreek Hill can still do his thing, but they're taking what's given to them underneath by letting Jonnu do his thing. So I'm with you. Until this changes, until defenses say, well, this is not working anymore, which I don't think is going to happen this short left in the season, I don't know how Jonnu Smith isn't top 5 every single week at this point.
Yeah, agreed. I just got to wonder what might have been with Miami if they just thought, hey, maybe we have this very shaky starting quarterback. We should have a competent backup just so in case something happens. I mean,
that was so baffling that they didn't. They just went into this year and they're like, oh, yeah, cool, Skylar Thompson. Like, everyone, what?
Yeah. He beat out Mike White, though. I mean, now we get we'll get a new Lotus because of that, so that's good. But
the new backup is Tim Boyle now. Like it's not even the Skylar Thompson experience is done.
Yeah, it's Tyler Huntley again, and Tyler Huntley Pro Bowl.
Oh yeah,
Huntley work out so well either. But
now it's Snoop Huntley. Oh, forget it, Snoop Huntley now.
Excuse me. Yeah. Well, he let fame get to his head. Clearly. So there you go. All right, you got the All In podcast, All In Fantasy podcast. You're on the Athletic, obviously. Again, tell everybody where they can hear you.
Yeah, the All In Fantasy podcast 4 times a week, 2 brief ones covering the weekends, look ahead and recap, and then Tuesdays and Wednesdays are waivers and ranks, which coincide with the waivers and ranks over the Athletic, which drop midnights Tuesday and Wednesday. Update them all week long. I'm Pat Mayo, as you mentioned, SiriusXM Mondays and Thursdays, 1 to 3. So yeah, a lot of stuff going on. I would say just look for the tweets on Twitter, but who the hell knows what the algorithm is anymore, or whether or not you get to see the tweets. So just try to find that stuff more naturally these days.
Yeah, and you're on Blue Sky too. I saw that.
Yes,
I just joined that a couple of weeks ago. So hundreds of followers now. So
I know. I will say you'll find that the one thing, it's like it has nothing to do with, I know a lot of people are like, oh, it's political. No, it's just like it feels like old Twitter where I'm talking to fantasy people and people interested in fantasy, and we could just, it's just smaller community, but I actually get responses. It looks like it doesn't get buried in the millions of whatever's happening. The algorithm doesn't get you over there.
Right, exactly. I don't ever use the For You tab on any place, though, either. I just do following, in part because I follow too many people, let alone have too many followers and all that,
Yeah.
You feel it is a nice filter. And I don't, for me, it's not political either. It's just, hey, a lot of people are going there. I need to be there. And so that's why I have an account there. I try to cross-post and all that. So check us all out there, folks. And thank you again for tuning in for our pod. I had a lot of fun. Jake, this was awesome. Thanks for coming on board.
Always great. It's great to be with one of the FSWA best and Hall of Famers of all time.
Oh, you're too kind. You're too kind. It's always fun to talk, and looking forward to Flex League playoffs starting next week. Should be a lot of fun for that, too.
Congratulations. I didn't make it.
Oh, no.
I started off 9-1 or 10-2, somewhere around there, and then just injuries galore. And now, even if I surpass the 6th spot, I get booted right back out anyway because number 6 has more points than I do.
Oh, no.
So I'm done.
All right. I'm actually kind of hovering right on the edge. So but it's not been an amazing year, but good enough. Enough. All right. That's going to wrap it up. Thanks everybody for tuning in. We got Mario and John tomorrow. Thanks again for listening. Take care.